interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Vikings Uncensored. We are sitting smack dab in the middle of the Super Bowl bye week. So not a whole lot of NFL type stuff going on. The Pro Bowl is this weekend. Anybody cares, but most people don't. I did see, as we record here on Thursday night, that Vikings long snapper Andrew DePaulo did win the skills competition for the long snappers. Just saw that while we were getting ready for the show here.
Skills competition for the long snappers. I mean, I didn't watch it, but actually bottom.
They got a board back there with different numbers on the thing, and they got to snap the ball through the holes in the board for the points. So,
wow, like a little mini game, man.
Yeah, it's like going to a mini golf place or something, but. But anyway, congrats to DePaulo on that.
And if you got ice cream afterwards.
Yeah, with sprinkles, because sprinkles are for winners.
And chocolate syrup.
Yeah. Got a few news items to hit this week. We'll go through some of that, mostly coaching hires and everything else, kind of putting the wraps on the coaching hire cycle for the most part here this week, so we'll hit those quick. And then we figured we'd take a look at some of the standouts from both the East-West Shrine Bowl practice this week. Of course, the Shrine Bowl game being played Thursday night here as we record. I have not had a chance to watch any of it, but we'll got some standouts from some of the people that were at the practice this week. And then, of course, the big one this week is the Reeces Senior Bowl down in Mobile, Alabama. A lot of the big name players down there, and we got a ton of comments and evaluations from people coming down from there. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was down there this week. Said he was paying pretty close attention to the quarterback group out there. So we'll get into all that stuff here in just a little bit. But starting off with the news, as we mentioned, the head coaching vacancies in the NFL are now full. Started off earlier this week, the Seattle Seahawks named Ravens defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald their new head coach.
Great hire, I believe, as in Seattle there. I think that's a great hire, and I feel like they went about their business and got the guy that they wanted to.
Yeah, and
as far as
according to the
continue.
I was just say, according to the big name pundits, the Rappaports and the Gesslings and all this other of the world, if Baltimore would have won this week, Seattle was willing to wait until after the Super Bowl to hire him. He was their guy.
Yeah. Great hire, I believe, honestly. So.
McDonald now becomes the youngest head coach in the NFL also. I think he's 36. Of course, was on John Harbaugh's staff in Baltimore, also was on Jim's staff in Michigan for a couple of years, and bouncing back and forth between the Harbaugh brothers. There's worse people to spend time with if you're trying to learn how to coach, I guess. So.
Right.
Then after that, earlier today on Thursday, the Washington Commanders announced that they have hired Dan Quinn as their new head coach. We had been reported last week that Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson was all but a done deal going to the Commanders. Then earlier this week, Johnson announced that he was returning to the Lions. From some of the rumblings I had heard, teams that were interested in him as their head coach kind of got scared off when he came with his contract demands. Apparently one place I read said he was asking for $15 million a year to be head coach.
Well, this decision's either gonna make or break him. I think it maybe not so much, but it's a big decision that he made to stick in Detroit, because right now, I mean, he's a hot commodity. And if Detroit goes and flounders next season, then that it might not be the same situation for him.
Well, look what happened with Byron Leftwich down in Tampa Bay. I mean, 2 years ago he was, or 3 years ago, whatever it was, he was considered a top head coaching candidate, and now he's not.
Rumors were swirling about his possibility coming here. I think he possibly interviewed, but now he's nowhere to be seen as far as I know.
Yeah, he's not. He is not even a coordinator anywhere right now. So it's, you kind of got to do that, to coin the old phrase, strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah. But, if he goes out and replicates what he did this season, and, then he'll get that. He'll get that, what he's asking for.
I guess time will tell whether or not it was a good decision or not. But, he's unfortunately back with Detroit again next year. I was hoping he would leave because he's a hell of an offensive coordinator.
He is. And he's he's not really connected to any coaching tree, other than outside of Campbell. And, he's a self-made guy as far as that goes. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens next season, for all 32 teams.
Right. Then in some of the coordinator positions, there's a ton of those signed up this week. The Philadelphia Eagles hired Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator and Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator.
Wow. Biggest surprise as far as the coaching thing goes to me, I think we all can agree to, is that Belichick didn't find another landing spot.
Yeah. Because, it had been talked about for several weeks that Belichick was far and away the lead candidate for the Atlanta Falcons job. And then, that did not end up going his way. And then, all the other spots dried up. So he's
maybe just, teams are moving forward to this next generation of coaching goes, as far as that goes. And the interest really wasn't there as much as the media had thought, and some of us podcasters had thought as well at some point or another.
Yeah, when you get a guy that, Dave Canales, who had been a coordinator for 1 year with Tampa Bay, all of a sudden he gets the head coaching job over a guy who's going to be a Hall of Famer. Belichick has earned that. But, it's that old school versus new school. There's not a whole lot of room for these old school guys anymore in today's NFL.
And how much did his ego go into his interviewing process? Not that I know of it at all, but how that, how it is.
Well, and with Belichick, he had total control in New England over personnel moves and all that other stuff. Now, did he want that in Atlanta as well? And Atlanta was not willing to give that to him. Right. We don't know what those sticking points were because it hasn't been reported.
But it's just thoughts that, as fans and as people that watch the game and have watched it for years, you kind of, this is normal things that one would think of, though, for real, when they go on, is this what he was trying to say or whatever?
Yeah.
But it was an interesting little thing from the offseason that surprised me that he didn't get picked up in some sort of head coaching role. He might still go on as an advisor somewhere, who knows?
Yeah. Beyond that, the Green Bay Packers have their new defensive coordinator, hiring Boston College head coach Jeff Hafley.
Oh, guy from the college ranks coming in at D coordinator, huh?
Now I couldn't pick Jeff Halfley out of an empty room. I know nothing about the guy.
No, I mean, I commend them for going after somebody from, the college ranks and bringing them up to see what they got. But I mean, I do not wish them the best, but
no,
hey,
I hope he fails miserably.
Exactly. I do too. But I mean, I give him a little, appreciation for the fact that they went out and got a college guy to see what he's got at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I do hope he fails. I hope he fails tremendously.
But we mean that in the nicest way possible, of course.
There you go. Yeah, we better say that. We do. We mean that in the nicest way possible. We hope you fail, but here's some cookies.
Right. Then the next one, and this is the last one I think for this week. Steelers hired former Atlanta Falcons head coach Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator. Now I don't know if that's a good move or not. I mean, he was a decent offensive coordinator with the Tennessee Titans.
I don't know. He just gives me buffoon vibes. Like, that's the perfect word for it. He's just a buffoon. Like, that's just what I see.
Well, yeah, as a head coach in Atlanta, he couldn't find his ass in the dark with both hands and a flashlight.
There you go.
But I don't know. You go from Matt Canada to I forget who was the interim guy to Arthur Smith. Is it a good move in Pittsburgh? I guess we'll find out. Then the only real Vikings news this week. T.J. Hawkinson, excuse me, finally had his ACL surgery this week. By all accounts, it went well. Now, I guess there had been a little bit of questioning as to why it took so long to have this.
I heard swelling.
No, it wasn't swelling. It was. Okay. I'd heard that too, but I got corrected on that when I was talking to somebody on X-Files the other day. And then I saw the report yesterday or whatever it was too. The reason why they waited so long is because they were letting the MCL heal on its own, because a lot of times the way the MCL is set up on your knee, a lot of times that'll heal by itself. You don't have to have surgery on that one.
Oh, yeah. Whereas back in high school, I know how that all works. But yeah, to that everybody who might not know.
Right. Whereas the ACL usually will not heal on its own. So they let the MCL heal to a point where they could take, where they felt comfortable with it. Then they move on to the ACL surgery.
Makes sense. Makes sense in that situation for sure, if that's possible.
Yep. Then the only other real news stuff, kind of an interesting thing on Thursday here. Former Seattle Seahawk running back Sean Alexander was on Up and Adams with Kay Adams either Wednesday or Thursday, whatever it was. And they were talking about Russell Wilson. Now, Alexander said he has heard rumblings, and he played with Russ for quite a few years in Seattle, so they're relatively close. Hearing rumblings that Russ might end up in Atlanta.
Wow.
Which is kind of an interesting development because we all had assumed that if Kirk Cousins does not come back to Minnesota, that Atlanta probably was the most likely landing spot for him due to family connections and all that other whatnot. But,
I mean, there's a couple of spots I believe that would be, willing to take a swing on Kirk too, as well, outside of Atlanta. But I mean, New England being one of them, I think. So if they don't find anybody they think they believe in the draft, the top part there, and they want to try to run it back, bringing Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and I talked about this. I don't remember if we talked about it on the studio show last Friday or if it was. I know I talked about it on Rants on Monday, but the rumblings out there from multiple people have reported now. Charlie Walters from Pioneer Press is one, and Peter King from NBC Sports, Monday Morning Quarterback, all that other stuff, reporting that Kirk Cousins may be looking for a 2-year, $90 million fully guaranteed contract.
Yeah, whatever happened to this whole hometown deal concept? Like you said, man, that was all just talk back then, and you would believe it when you seen it. You called it for real.
It's
lip service at the time for sure.
A hometown deal would be Kirk signing for $35 million, maybe 37, something.
Or if you're thinking 15 million.
let's be honest, nobody expected that to happen. I mean, there's some
Yeah, I
delusional
know.
fans out there that have thrown that number around, but
I'm not in the numbers business by any
right.
means.
But you know, the fully guaranteed deal thing is that's an absolute non-starter for me. Okay, you're 36 years old, you're coming off an Achilles tear, and you want the team to fully guarantee you 2 more years? No, thank you.
I think honestly, the inside the organization at this point is really ready to move on. I think outside of the as we used to coin them Kirkistans, I love me some Kirk too as much as anybody else, but I think a lot of us fans are ready to move on to somebody new and then possibly bring in that bridge guy that we've talked about in the past in either Minshew or whoever it may be, and then have him and the rookie that we go and we get in the first round, and whoever it may be, may the best man go and get it. So
Yeah.
I don't think I'm not sold on Kirk coming back as much as I was towards the end of the year. I have a really feeling
especially if there's any truth to that, fully guaranteed contract again. If it's $30 million fully guaranteed for two, sure, okay, I can live with that.
Well, the thing to me is if there's any truth to those rumblings about Kirk missing the first 6 weeks of the season, you ain't giving him that type of fucking contract, man.
No,
you're just not. You're not.
If you're fully guaranteeing $90 million, how the hell are you going to sign Justin Jefferson to his contract extension? Re-sign Danielle Hunter.
Ideally, in Brunswick's world, this is the best year of any to just cut ties and move on.
Well, and I've tried to make this argument on, a couple of the threads on Twitter. We've been going back. People go back and forth, on an hourly basis on this kind of crap on there. But okay, say we re-sign Kirk and we forego drafting a quarterback this year. Okay, with Kirk Cousins, we pretty much know you're going to most likely be drafting somewhere in that 20 to 25 range.
Yeah.
So if you're complaining that now about how much it's going to cost to move up from 11 to 2 or 3 or wherever to draft a quarterback this year, what are you going to do 2 years from now when that 2-year, $90 million Kirk Cousins contract is over and you need a quarterback at that point in time?
And that's just
one of 23rd.
That's just one of the reasons that now is the time to move on. If not,
absolutely it is.
That's just one of the reasons, and that's a big reason.
Well, and that's what I've been advocating.
Our pro is about moving on, in my opinion.
I've been advocating, even if we re-sign Kirk Cousins, even if this fully guaranteed thing is just smoke and everything else, this is still the year to go get that quarterback, to trade up to 2 and 3 and get a Drake May, get a Jaden Daniels.
Yes. And for my eyes looking in for Chaos, it's KOC's time to go do that, to go get his guy. He's going into year 3 of his first head coaching deal. It's time to go get your guy. You were brought here to find the guy of being a former quarterback and being an offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. You were brought in here to find the future for this franchise. Yeah. It's year 3. And it's year 3 for Kwesi too. Mm-hmm. And when Kwesi and KOC got here, Kirk was still the guy. Yeah. It's year 3. Like I've said it 3 times now. Go get your guy. Go get your guy at all costs.
Mm-hmm. Now, the interesting thing I just saw here too, when I was just before we were doing some show prep here, Colin Cowherd. Take Colin Cowherd for whatever you want to take him as. I am personally not a fan, but he is well connected, everything else. He had put something out today that Caleb Williams' camp has said that they do not want to go to Chicago. Now, I was never necessarily sold on the Bears taking a quarterback at number 1 anyway. But if there's any truth to this, okay, do they still take a quarterback? Do they take a Drake May number 1 instead of Caleb Williams? Do they say screw it and take Marvin Harrison Jr., which if I was Ryan Poles, that's what I would do.
It comes down to the three quarterbacks for me in this draft is Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
Those are my 3 top guys, and you do whatever it takes to get up to get either one of those 3. I know that right now there's a sourness in the mouth of everybody with Caleb Williams and all this egotistical shit that's going on in the background. But if he comes here, I tell you what, I'm going to be a number 1 Caleb Williams fan.
Yeah, I will be too. I mean, yeah, Williams is third of those 3 in my, on my wish list, and it doesn't matter which quarterback.
I would be happy with any one of those 3 at some level. I'd be happy with another at another level, but I would be happy with any 3 of those guys.
Yeah. Well, since we start talking about draft picks here, good segue over to talking about some of the big risers, big standouts, and interesting notes from both the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl this week. Starting out with the Shrine Bowl, a common thread, I guess, for both practices is this is looking like it's another very deep wide receiver class. At the Shrine Bowl, starting it out, wide receiver Malik Washington from the University of Virginia was, quote, the main attraction during practices this week. His moves, his coming in and out of his breaks, all that kind of stuff. Creating separation was, I guess, just top notch.
Wow.
Now, the only problem is he's only 5'8", so he's literally like a Brandon Powell size.
Yeah, that's I mean, you know what? There was another great receiver that wasn't very tall that spent a lot of time in this league, and that was Deshaun Jackson. He was a shorter guy. So Percy Harvin was short too. I don't know exactly this guy that you're speaking of. It's news to me in his name. But if he's got that bulkiness, it depends on his size. He might not be that tall, but if he's got some size, that would go a long way in helping as far as that goes.
Yeah. Other than that, more Shrine Bowl standouts. Offensive lineman Dylan McMahon from North Carolina State was probably the best offensive lineman all week. He played a little bit of guard, but more at center, and they said he did a really good job there. Very impressive, I guess. So that's a mid-round guy probably that.
And a middle tier need for this team, interior lineman for sure.
And that's why I kind of focus some of these standouts as positions of need for the Vikings, so we kind of have names to keep in the back of your mind when we get to that point. The next one, kind of a familiar name to some of those of us up in this area, Christian Boyd, defensive tackle from Northern Iowa. They said he was going up against Big Ten offensive linemen and making them look kind of silly here.
Nice.
Said definitely worked himself into a mid to late day 2 consideration for picks. 2 edge rushers, Trajan Jeffcoat from Arkansas and Sundiata Anderson from Grambling. Both of them, very good work rushing passer. Jeffcoat looked really good against the run as well, and dropping back into coverage. Anderson looked to be more of a pure pass rusher right now, but they said he was flashing some of the tools that could, get him into more of a every down guy instead of a situational type pass rusher. So, probably another couple of mid to late round guys there. Here's an interesting one that I thought, is worth keeping an eye on. Kicker Cam Little from Arkansas. They said one of the guys, I think might have been Jordan Reed from ESPN, said just the aura of an elite kicker walking onto the field when he was out there. So he did have a couple of misses, he said, but he did kick a 56-yarder that they said would have been good from 60 plus. So the kid's got a leg to him.
You know what, though? I think there's going to be a lot of teams looking at kicker, somewhere in the late rounds this year, because there's a lot of teams from this year that had some issues with their kicking, field goals.
Us included, then that's...
Yeah, Buffalo. Detroit's Badgley's not a very good, kicker by any means.
Green Bay.
Green Bay's Anders Carlson. I think they stick
or-
with Anders. I think they give him another season there.
I hope
But I
they
mean,
do.
all over the league, there's really hasn't been a good consistency as far as kickers go, except out of the few names that have been consistent throughout the years.
Yeah. Your Justin Tuckers, your Harrison Butkers,
Yep.
those kind of people.
Koo. And then even Koo has his moments where he's kind of up and down.
Yep.
So.
But those are the main guys from the Shrine Bowl. So over to the big time now, the Senior Bowl. Of course, we had a lot of the big name guys were down there, and then we had some people in the.
I just had a thought going in my head quick before we get back into this. With the way games are going nowadays and how a lot of games are won by one score or less, that kind of makes that kicker position a little bit more important as well.
It does.
And I think teams are kind of buying into that idea too. So, anyways, continue. I'm sorry. I just had that go through my mind.
No, absolutely. That's a very, very good point. On to the Senior Bowl. Now, most of the, or a lot of the analysis we got on here came from our buddy Tyler Fornes and also from Thor Nystrom, both of Vikings podcast fame, and they're both down at the Senior Bowl. So we had some, live tweeting and a bunch of other stuff coming through there. Now also, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was down at the Senior Bowl, and they said he was paying particular attention to the quarterbacks, at least like Tuesday, Wednesday.
I mean, it's
now, of course,
clear to me that we're looking at quarterbacks.
Yeah. Now, of course, the big three were not down there, but you did have your guys, your Bo Nixons, Michael Penix was there, Joe Milton from Tennessee, Michael Pratt from Tulane, Spencer Rattler, Sam Hartman, a bunch of different quarterbacks there. But as far as your tier 2 worth of quarterbacks, you had Bo Nix and Michael Penix were your two main guys, and neither one really did much to put themselves ahead of anybody else in that second tier of quarterbacks. Bo Nix struggled pretty badly from what they said the first 2 days.
Yeah, I heard that.
Now, Thor said that today he had a much better day. So, take it with a grain of salt. I'll be interested to see this weekend how he plays.
That Rattler kid, his story is kind of an interesting one. He had a lot of hype coming into college, coming out of high school.
When he was at Oklahoma, he was very good for like a year and a half. And he fell off, and now he's at South Carolina now.
It's an interesting story.
Rattler was one of those guys that was very inconsistent these last 3 days. At times he looked very, very good, and at times he's out there and he's letting passes sail on him, and he's kind of shotgun approach balls all over the place. So he's
any interest in a lower pick at this point, quarterback? Rattler's got a pretty interesting story in his history. So
yeah, I liked Rattler when he first came out, but I'm soured on him quite a bit. I don't think he's got,
and that's kind of the story. That's kind of part of the story.
I think he has potential to be a decent backup, but I wouldn't trust him to be a starter.
Yeah.
Michael Pratt from Tulane has been kind of showing up a little bit and stuff. I was actually having a conversation with former Vikings preseason legend Kyle Sloter on Twitter the other night, and asked him what he thought, because he does a lot of quarterback analysis and stuff. Now, I asked him what he thought about Pratt. He said he's got a very high ceiling. Not really sure, if it's going to translate into being a quality starting quarterback or not. But
just that right there tells me, if you're serious about going and getting a quarterback, he's not the guy that you go get.
No,
he's the guy that we went and got the last 6 years.
Exactly. He's one of those second, third round prospects that you maybe hope could turn into something.
We keep swinging on these guys that we think are possible gems, and then we find out that they are who they are.
Right. But moving on. Okay, so Michael Penix today, he had a pretty rough day, the way it sounds. up and down Tuesday and Wednesday. Kind of seeing the same thing with him. That's been the knock on Penix the whole time. He doesn't deal well with pressure up the middle. You get him out, he can get out and move around and things like that and make plays, and he's got an absolute howitzer for an arm.
Sounds like a Dak Prescott type of quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the kid's got the tools.
Yeah.
But, the injury thing has always concerned me with Penix. He's had 2 ACLs, a couple of shoulder injuries, and a couple, some other stuff through college.
Yeah.
And, he looked fantastic against Texas in the, FBS playoffs, and then went up against the top defense in Michigan, and he didn't look that good at all.
Dak Prescott.
Yeah. Today, I guess they said Sam Hartman, his stock fell quite a bit. He didn't look very good at all. Joe Milton from Tennessee, kind of the same thing. So, if you're looking at those guys, you're not looking for a starter. You're looking for,
we at this point, we just need to do what we haven't done in over 20 years. And with Culpepper even, I don't even know if he just happened to fall for us and we just took him. We needed a quarterback, but
the Vikings have never traded up. We've never taken a quarterback in the top 10.
It wasn't Tarkenton was a top 10, wasn't he?
Tarkenton was a third rounder.
That's right. Excuse me. It's heresy in Vikings world, but yes.
No, the highest drafted quarterback we ever taken was Dante Culpepper at 11. And then Christian Ponder.
Tommy was a first rounder, wasn't he?
Tommy was 29th.
Okay.
And then Teddy Bridgewater was 32nd. We've drafted.
Let's do what we've never fucking done before and go up into the top 5 of the NFL draft and get a fucking top 3 name coming out of college.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And then you get the fucking you go and you scout the shit out of all 3 of those guys and you get the best one that you think will fit best in the system. I can't wait to see a young kid come in here, command this team as it is his own, and take us to that promised land where we'll always needed to be. And we did it on the shoulders of a guy that came here as a rookie at one point and led us there. Not some guy that we picked up from some other team or some Band-Aid or the last piece that was needed to get this guy to the next level or some guy that fucking fell into our laps in the draft. Let's get a guy that we seriously covet and fucking do what it takes to go up and get him.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Talked about that extensively on Monday on the Ranch Show. If you guys haven't seen that, go back and check it out. But moving on from the quarterbacks, again, like I mentioned before, looking like another deep wide receiver class. A couple of the standouts down in Mobile. Xavier.
To Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah. Xavier Leggett from South Carolina was struggling. Didn't really show much on day 1, but day 2 he really shined out. Did not practice day 3. I think he had a little bit of either had a tweak or had proven all he needed to prove, so didn't practice anymore. Jaquan Jackson from Tulane, who Jordan Reed called one of the sleeper wide receivers in this draft. Johnny Wilson from Florida State was another one. And one guy I saw some tape on that I didn't know anything about the kid, but this kid's route running is ridiculous. Georgia wide receiver Ladd McConkey. This is that video I sent you yesterday when we were. But this kid was out there, and they had a kind of a montage of all the routes he was running on the one-on-one drills, and he was making cornerbacks fall down, trip, go the other direction. I mean, this guy was he was cutting.
McCardle loves him, a receiver that can kind of do a little bit of everything, with a great route tree, and a guy, not somebody that can just run north to south, but a guy that can put some get up and, or, a couple of hiccups here and there in his route running and really make guys look silly.
Yeah. And, wide receiver is going to be another potential target because, KJ Osborne's a free agent. Don't know if he's coming back or not. So,
I heard something crazy this week. I heard that Mike McDaniel down in Miami has his wide receivers watch point guards in the NBA do crossovers and shit like that to help out with their route running. they make him watch Allen Iverson tapes. I mean, you just look at Diggs when he breaks off of that press coverage, a juke to the left, and then he, a lot of that is, kind of NBA correlated as well.
Yeah. A couple other interesting ones. Utah safety Sione Vaki. He was practicing both as safety and also switching over to the other side and doing some running back, wide receiver type stuff. I guess he played running back in 1 or 2 games this year for Utah, and he had like 158 yards rushing. So kind of an interesting thing there where you can maybe do a few things with mixing things up a little bit. He's a kid I've seen, available like 4th, 5th round as far as a safety goes.
Athlete, yeah.
If Harrison Smith doesn't come back, safety may be a spot where the Vikings are going to be looking for something about that range too. So, other than that,
Antoine Winfield Jr., would be a great pickup out of free agency.
Yeah, he's not going to come cheap, but yeah.
Maybe he'll give us a hometown discount.
A couple of other ones. UCLA edge rusher Leatu Latu, who I've seen in the early mock drafts mocked to the Vikings at 11 a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They've been saying he's probably the top edge rusher in this class. Now, he has had some injury history in college and did not practice on Thursday at the Senior Bowl due to leg soreness. He was standing on the sidelines with a wrap on his legs, so it may have reared its ugly head a little bit more. So that's, one of those supremely talented players that has that injury
going on there that we don't know about or whatever.
Yeah, that may cause him to fall a little bit in the draft just because of that. Now, if he would happen to fall to the 2nd round, I'd be all over it.
There was a couple of good linebackers this past offseason that fell to the 2nd round that were great this season.
Mm-hmm. Another one, Missouri defensive lineman Darius Robinson was extremely impressive down there, they said. He's a pretty big dude. He's 6'5", 286.
Wow.
So he'd fit into that 5 tech, probably, but he had 8.5 sacks last year, but they said he's playing himself into consideration for late 1st round draft pick, probably.
Wow. That's definitely some good, that's some good measurables, for real. I like that.
Yep. Then another one, Oregon State offensive tackle, Talise Fuaga, looked very good. Then the other one, and I didn't write down his name, but the center from Oregon, can't think of his name. I blanked his name. I apologize, but they said Powers Johnson. Yeah, saw him out there, and he was taking defensive linemen and burying them in the ground.
Wow,
they're talking. That is something we need. If you could put that guy on this offensive line, oh my freaking!
We haven't had somebody like that at center since Matt Burke left.
Yeah, this guy was just manhandling everybody. I watched some of the practice footage on him, and that, it gave me that warm and tingly feeling watching him do his thing out there. But
that Linderbaum that we talked about, what was it, 2 or was it last season or
Iowa,
season before? Yeah, he ended up going on to be a decent center in this league too, as well. So,
yeah. Now my favorite quote and whole thing out of the week, and this is a guy that our buddy Reggie Adams had kind of turned me on to here several weeks ago. Texas defensive lineman Tavondre Sweat.
Oh yeah.
Our buddy Tyler Fornes had interviewed him on Tuesday, or I believe it was, and asked him what the NFL evaluators had told him that they expect out of him to do, expect him to do when he gets to the next level. His response was, they told me just to go out there and fuck shit up.
I love it.
He's a big dude. I would love to have him on, and he's maybe somebody that's going to be available there at 42.
Yeah.
In the second round. I've also heard that the Vikings are very high on his teammate Byron Murphy Jr. Not to be confused with Byron Murphy Jr., who we have at cornerback.
He's gonna be playing with his son. What?
So yeah, so if we were to draft him, we would have Byron Murphy Jr. and Byron Murphy Jr. No relation.
That'd be great.
Defense at the same
that
time.
Would be great. That'd be great. Just for the irony of it all.
Mm-hmm. But we talked about this. The positions of need for this team. You're looking in the trenches, defensive line, edge rushers, interior offensive line. We could definitely go with an upgrade at center, and it's not that hard to get out from underneath Garrett Bradbury's contract if we need to.
Right.
We don't know what's going to happen at left guard, whether or not Ryder's coming back. If I was to guess, I think there's a good chance he does. Secondary, I think secondary, we need to go out in the free agent market and find some experience to put back there with the young guys.
Winfield Jr. I think we need to go out there. He's a Jr. We need to give him number 26, and he needs to fly around the backfield for us.
Yeah, he's a safety, not a cornerback, but.
Oh, I know. He's safety.
We played a ton of free safety stuff, most of last year anyway, but.
I mean, bringing Winfield Jr. into this defense would not be a complaint at all of mine. I mean,
no, I wouldn't complain about it either. I
couldn't even imagine, having him and Bynum and Metellus all out there at one time on the field is causing havoc, and then you got Sweat coming in from the rookies just fucking shit up out there. That'd be great.
Yeah.
They could all fuck up shit together, but in a positive manner.
Yeah, as long as we're dreaming, we might as well dream big.
And then you got Pace coming back in his second year wearing number 0. That's gonna up his game a whole other level.
Oh, yeah, right.
Just like wearing number 4 up Delvin Cook's game a whole other level.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, that's a lot of good stuff this week from the Senior Bowl and everything else. One of these years, I promise, as long as we're still doing this show, my goal is to get media credentials and go down there and represent Vikings Uncensored at the Senior Bowl.
God, that'd be great.
I wanted to do it this year, couldn't make it work, so I'm gonna shoot for next year, and we'll see what happens. I talked to Tyler one day about it. He said, it's not that difficult to get media credentials for down there, so we'll see what happens at this time next year. But too many other things going on this year to make it work. But anyway, that's really all we've got for this week, unless you've got anything else you want to hit, Lance.
Well, you want to predict the Super Bowl next week?
We'll do the Super Bowl preview next week, yeah.
Okay.
Unless you want to do a prediction segment for the Pro Bowl.
I don't know.
I think we'll pass on that one.
When you got Andrew DePaulo out there doing a skill showdown, throwing footballs into little holes and getting ice cream afterwards, I don't know.
You can't. That pretty much says it all that you need to know about the Pro Bowl right there. But
what? You got ice cream? What the fuck did you eat ice cream?
But yeah, anyway, I want to thank everybody again for tuning in. Hit that like, hit that follow, hit the subscribe, both Facebook and YouTube, so you don't miss an episode. We got a ton of stuff coming up here in the off season. Once the Super Bowl is over, we're going to start doing positional breakdowns, player breakdowns, stuff like that. Looking at least the definite positions of need for the team, guys that we maybe can see coming in as potential pieces, potential fits for the team, both free agent and draft.
I believe this team continues to get younger as we go into next year, honestly.
Yeah, and there's going to be some more contracts offloaded and stuff like that. I honestly don't see Harrison Smith back next year, whether he retires, which
I think he hangs him up, but
I think there's a good chance he does.
Time will tell.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff coming up. So stick with us. Check us out. Of course, Monday nights at 7, Ryno's Rants. Wednesdays at 6, Brunswick's Best. And then, of course, our normal studio show every Friday night, 6 p.m. Central Time. With that, again, thank you, everybody, for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. We really appreciate you sticking with us week after week. We have a ton of fun doing this. We do it for you guys. We love talking Vikings, and it gives us something to do, and we enjoy it. So thank you again. With that, why don't you take us home, Lance?
Yeah, great wrap up there, Ryno. Like I said, I'm excited for the future. I believe we have some pretty big bombs coming as far as this offseason goes. As far as I think we move up in the draft this year, and I think we make that move to get our next franchise guy. I think, like I said, I've been preaching it the last couple of weeks. This is the defining year in Kwesi and KOC's tenure as GM and head coach, and getting Flores most likely coming back again to continue to lead this defense and grow off of what we started last season. Brighter days are ahead. I'm excited to see what we do. This NFC North is becoming extremely competitive now. One of the better divisions in the NFC, in my opinion. Glad to see Detroit bow out of the playoffs so gallantly like they did in utter collapsing fashion. Right, exactly. We've been there. We all know how it feels, and it's not easy, man. So, with that being said, like I said, I look towards the future. I look towards the things that we have coming up, the scouting combine and the Senior Bowl next week, and speculation, lots and lots of speculation in the next few days and weeks and months. So with that being said, I appreciate every one of you out there. Thanks for coming to watch the show again this week. And we'll see you next week with another episode. Aubrey and Millie, if you're out there, Daddy loves and misses you. SKOL.
Have a good weekend, everybody.